people who slept with their best friend. What happened? A friend's story. At first, they were sleeping together because the sexual tension was getting too much. But he couldn't commit because he had greater priorities to take care of. Then, when he realized he was at risk of losing her forever, he took the plunge and asked her if she wanted to be with him, and she teased him, wondering why it took him so long. She actually helped him get through a lot of things, and turned out to be the support he needed all along. They're happily married now.
Story 2.
Didn't sleep with him, but would give him regular BJ. Nothing changed. He was still a brilliant friend, and we still talk to this day even though he's married. The BJ stopped though, obviously. Story 3. Like a movie actually, Halloween party. I always had feelings for her. Spin the bottle, get in the closet, make out, figuring out they're my best friend. Have a fun night. Pretend nothing ever happened. Couldn't. Started dating. Fast forward 5 years, married, and a newborn. Story 4. She's sleeping in the other room, snoring like a chainsaw, wearing her 110-year-old wedding ring. That old broad could wake the dead, I swear. Story 5. She told me I should move out of the flat, and she never spoke to me again. Best friends for years and did everything together. One stupid night of drinking way too much destroyed that friendship real quick. For those wanting more backstory, my friend invited me out to a night of drinking followed by drinks at the flat. We were both absolutely hammered. I hadn't had anything to drink in years, so it didn't take much. Months later found out she had wanted to be in a relationship with me for years, so I think the sleeping together thing had always been a bit of an end goal for her, but then probably saw that it was more of a mistake on my part instead of the beginning of a relationship. Story 6. He immediately stopped treating me like his best friend and started treating me like one of the other women he lied to about his feelings. 12-year friendship gone in 3 months. Oh, and the first time we slept together, he thought I'd be easily turned on after he vented all night about his ex like he would normally do. I wasn't. Story 7. She loved the sex, said it was the best she's ever had, and then pretended to love me until she ghosted me, maybe 6 months later. I miss my friend. Before everything happened, she was great, though I guess I didn't truly know her. Only the mask she wore. Story 8. We had both just gone through bad breakups. We split a bottle of wine and started venting about our failed relationships. One thing led to another, and next thing we know, we were in bed together. Story 9. It went on for a few months. The sex was decent, but I knew she was moving a couple hours away and neither of us were interested in making that work, so it ended pretty amicably. We had a year or so of awkwardness and less contact, but that also could have been BC. We saw each other much less with her moving. I moved across the country. She got married. We're still friends, but not like we were before. Story 10. I'm a guy, and one of my best friends back in middle and high school was a girl. Let's call her Audrey. We both played basketball and had a fun competitive friendship involving lots of one-on-one matches, horse, etc. She lived a short bike ride away, so we played ball a lot. We'd eat at each other's houses, were friendly with each other's parents, would hang out and watch movies, etc. We each dated other people, and it was cool. There was always an undercurrent of attraction which we were surprisingly mature about looking back. In 8th grade, we made a pact that we'd see each other as brother and sister, and that was that. We stuck to it, dated other people. It was cool. She even dated one of my other best friends, and it didn't impact our friendship. Everyone was cool. Toward the end of senior year, I broke up with my longtime girlfriend and was a bit of a wreck. Audrey invited me over to play ball. It was a very hot spring day, and after playing a bit, we went inside to cool off. Her parents weren't home, and I noticed that she was acting a little bit differently toward me, up in my face with a lot of playful trash talk, always physically close. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie, which was something we always did in her bedroom so her parents could have some peace in the living room. I said fine, and she already had a movie picked out, one which I'd never heard of, Wild Things. I went into that movie completely clueless about it, and yeah, it's Wild Things. She obviously picked that movie for a reason. Right after the first sex, she leaned over and kissed me, and then before I even fully processed what was going on, she was giving me head. She wanted me to finish that way, so I did, quite quickly. She seemed happy with that, and we cuddled like lovers for the rest of the movie. Predictably, things got a little weird after that. As maturely as we'd handled things before, now neither of us knew what to do, especially since we were going to be going to college in different states. I knew that I didn't want to have a long-distance girlfriend despite my feelings for Audrey, and I think she felt that way too. We never hooked up again and didn't hang out much after that. We stayed in touch for a few years, and that was that. Story 11. Slept with my best friend during COVID lockdowns. It then became a regular occurrence until we both started to catch feelings, and it became a bit toxic. He eventually got a girlfriend, and we stopped speaking for a few months after. But now we're back to being best friends, and I consider his girlfriend one of my best friends as well. I'm thankful every day that it didn't ruin our friendship. Story 12. My 27M best friend, 28F, have slept together a handful of times over the past 5-ish years. After we spend a night together, we generally get breakfast, talk about it, and move on. Neither of us are interested in a relationship with each other, but we both have needs, and we trust each other to provide a safe environment to satisfy those needs. It's never really affected our relationship with each other, but it does get complicated when one of us is in a relationship. Having to explain to a girlfriend that my best friend and I have hooked up, but that it didn't mean anything beyond a release is a tough sell, even though it's true. The alternative is not revealing that, but that just seems scummy. Story 13. We began a monogamous relationship that has taught me what loving someone really means. After months of sleeping together and cuddling, texting constantly and literally nothing else ever, I thought either he was gay or self-conscious, and I didn't look at him as anything past my best friend and rock in my messy life. It happened. And from that moment on, I realized how incredibly attractive he actually is and couldn't think about anything else but him. That was a year ago next month, and I'm laying next to him now, smelling his skin and cuddling him while he sleeps, and I scroll Reddit. I still can't get enough of him. Story 14. It kind of ruined everything. TBH, I always had a thing for him, but he wasn't aware about it since I know how to bury stuff deep down. Anyway, we had a few drinks one evening, and then one thing led to another, and we ended up sleeping together. Imagine the shock when we woke up next to each other the following morning. Haha. We tried laughing it off, but the awkwardness kind of stayed. The friendship seemed forced after that, and we eventually lost contact. But the thing is, I never really forgot about him. Never deleted his phone number, too. It's not that I thought about him all the time or stalked his socials, but he just seemed to occupy a certain space in my heart that I'd suddenly reopen once every 3 years and meddle with the what-ifs. He was, after all, the first guy I had a crush on, and the only guy I ever truly liked. So anyway, 10 years later this year, I ran into him at a random bookstore in a really small town no one has ever heard of, and there he was, perfect as ever, haha. We immediately went out to grab a few drinks and caught each other up on lost times. The awkwardness long gone. We finally talked about that night 10 years later, and we both agreed it was a mistake, and it kind of ruined our friendship. I finally told him about the feelings I always have for him, and that somehow I never forgot about him. He was surprised, of course, and admitted he had always liked me too and thought of me often, haha. We're really shy people. But now we're both headed in different directions in life. As we hugged each other goodnight that night, we kind of understood that that would be our last meeting and we'd never see each other again. But I'm grateful for that chance meeting at that bookstore located in the middle of nowhere. And even though it's 10 years too late and I lost a good friendship, and possibly a soul-binding healthy relationship, I'm glad I got the opportunity to at least tell him what and how I felt. Closure, I suppose. I wish him the very best in everything he does. In a way, he'll always have my heart. Story 15. Nobody's reading this, so I guess this is more of much postponed diary entry, self-therapy session. To preface, I haven't been much of a ladies' man. Most sex I've had have been hookups or unserious flings, and not very many at that. It might explain how things went. We met at work, and she became my best friend very soon after. She's stunning and so funny. I never thought I had a crumb of a chance with her, so I didn't even consider her romantically for such a long time. But we hung out at and off of work a lot, and we grew closer and closer. About a year goes by, and I realize I would hate myself forever if I didn't try. So one night at a work party, a good bit tipsy, I asked if she'd want to go on a date. She said I weren't really her type, fair, not a looker exactly, but that she felt super close to me, and she didn't know what to do. I figured that's that. Back to wherever zone I tried to crawl out of. But the very same night, she kissed me, and we hooked up, and it was something I had never experienced. Giving and receiving pleasure with someone you truly, deeply care for. When she left my place, I was sure that's it. One-time thing. Whatever. She probably thinks it was a mistake and will just pretend it didn't happen. But a week later, it happened again. I figured 2 times aren't mistakes anymore. She knows I have feelings for her, and now I started thinking she must feel the same. I finally let myself believe it. This could be real. And the next time we met, she said she doesn't want to take it further anymore. I ducking, let myself believe. I let my feelings go, untethered. And as soon as I did, she pulled the brakes. She had perfectly good reasons that didn't even factor me in, but it hurt so much. I never showed her how bad I hurt. I never sulked or begged her back. I often wonder if she could see through it. I hope she didn't. I tried so hard staying friends with her, and I did for a while. But every time we talked, every time I saw a pic on egg, every time someone mentioned her at work, it was like a dagger twisting in my chest. I loved her. I still do 5 years later. We haven't talked in at least 3. Haven't felt really anything close to that with anyone since. I regret saying anything because I lost both a friend and the closest thing to true love I've felt. I just hope she is happy. Story 16. I'm an older college student, returning to school for a midlife career change after a divorce and doing some difficult self-work. Met a man in class who was in exactly the same situation. We quickly became incredibly close friends. Initially, it was just study buddies, but then we started hanging out just because we enjoyed each other's company, but it was never romantic or sexual. Then one night we drank a little too much and made out. We mutually agreed it couldn't happen again, because our lives were too complicated with our own kids and all that, but we stayed close. Then we went out of town together to celebrate making it through a tough semester. We got a room with 2 separate beds, agreed that everything would be completely platonic. That plan failed. We made out again. Then when we talked about it a few days later, we came to the conclusion that we both went into that night knowing what would ultimately happen, and we decided to go on the trip anyway. That must mean that, whether or not we were ready to admit it, this was what we both wanted. We became a couple. We told our classmates, who all laughed because most of them had assumed we were already together. I guess everyone else saw it before we did. It's been about 10 months since we made it official, and I have never been happier. This is the deepest, most honest, emotionally secure relationship I've ever had. We don't just meet each other's needs, we somehow have this institution ability to anticipate each other's needs and meet them before the other has to ask. We were officially together for a few months before we ever had sex, and I think that helped. We built a very solid foundation of trust. We're both middle-aged and have done what we need to do to work through our own baggage. It hasn't even been a year yet, so I'm trying not to get hung up on the future. But I think I want to have this man by my side for a long, long time. Story 17. We started dating, and I thought things were going great. At the time, we lived about 2 hours apart in different cities, and since it was the early 90s, all we had was snail mail and phone calls during the week, but on the weekends we'd get together. Then, one weekend, she came to my house, we hung out together and had a nice time, and when she left, that was the last time I ever heard from her. I tried calling her house, and after about 2 weeks of calling, her roommate answered the phone and told me she moved back to Wyoming, where she was originally from, to live with her mom. That was it. Like I said, I never heard a word from her ever again. Several years later, I bumped into a mutual friend who told me she ended up married to some Arab dude and she became a tradition Muslim wife. This made almost no sense to me because that chick was a hardcore punk girl when we were friends and was the proto-riot GRL. Considering that her friend was a complete flake, I think she might have been pulling my chain, but weirder things have happened. But yeah, I got ghosted big time before we used that word to describe that. Over the years, I tried looking her up a few times online just to find out whether or not she's still alive, but her name is just common enough that I can't find anything, and she might not have any sort of social media presence under her birth name, especially if she really did become some traditional Muslim wife for some Arab dude. Story 18. I only remember waking up not knowing where I was, having a lot of pain and never seeing them again until they got on TV. Turns out I wasn't his only victim. Story 19. We slept together for about 10 months while also sleeping with other people. We'd talk about the others we slept with and knew what each other was up to. We had lots of strong feelings for each other, but it was a whole complex situation, so we avoided dating. Then I blew him off for another guy and he realized that it made him too upset to just remain friends, and all the complications would have to deal with it. We've now been together 12 years and married for 7 years. We have 2 awesome children. He helped me get through nursing school, nurse practitioner school, and was there for everything. We still consider each other our best friend and have a very happy marriage. Story 20. We were in our mid-20s, friends since we were 14, both of us fresh out of sexless relationships, so we were horny and decided to give it a shot. It was weird. In a hotel, almost got walked in on by the cleaners. My period showed up early and I bled everywhere. I cried a bit afterwards as I was scared of our friendship ending. He was very kind and comforting and it ended up being okay. He got me a job with his company several years later, of which I will be forever grateful as I was very poor back then. We didn't hang out much as our lives were moving in different directions. He moved to another country, got a very powerful, well-paying job, got married, and had a kid. I have a long-term partner of 9 years. Even though we aren't in touch all the time, in our mid-40s, he is still someone I could call randomly and vice versa, and it feels exactly the same since we were 14. We are still the same people, and I consider him someone I love very much, platonically. I'm genuinely glad he made it in life. Story 21. Started off as friends. Then I proposed we be friends with benefits. And we didn't have sex until I knew I really liked her and wanted her in my life. We were both virgins, so I wanted my first time to be with someone special. We started acting like a couple, going on dates, really loving sex and being loving towards each other. I realized that I was falling in love with her. So we upgraded our relationship. More love was shared and even more time was spent together. And it felt more real, like I'm holding the hand of the woman that I want to be with forever. Apparently, her hope when I proposed the FWB was that we would become a couple. Anyway, I've been super in love and dating her for almost 2 years now. Long story short, story 22. Well, I can't say it was worth it. It felt right at that moment. Like maybe we realized our friendship built up to this. but afterwards felt icky. For a friendship that crosses genders, we knew too much about each other for too long. It felt like we're siblings. We decided we weren't meant to pursue that route. We stayed close friends for a couple of years later, but drifted apart after for another reason. I think if we'd be in the same city, we would still be best friends. I think we agreed telepathically that it was important that it happened so as to answer any what-ifs, but just in general we treat it as a vivid dream. Only talked about it twice or thrice, and always with jokes. Not even our then-new partners. The couple years after it happened knew or would believe us if I told them. Story 23. My best female friend and I were very close, and we were both a little promiscuous, but would usually just regale each other with our escapades. She frequently expressed interest in me, but I was unwilling to jeopardize the friendship, so I never went for it. Then she got really sick, terminal, and was put on hospice, then taken off a couple times. During one of her brief moments of wellness, I went over to visit and we hooked up. It was a lot of fun, and she passed away shortly thereafter. I still miss her and think about her. She was a great friend. Sometimes I regret not giving in to her suggestions while we were both well, but more than anything I miss having a true female bro. Story 24. We became friends with benefits for a while. He stopped treating me like a friend and started behaving like a boy. I realized that's what he had been doing to other girls for as long as I knew him. But I was a pick-me and one of the guys, and I thought I deserved different. I wasn't interested in a relationship. I'm talking basic decency stuff. Then I realized it was not about other girls' value or mine. My friend was just in a hole. I put a lot of distance. Easy because we lived in different cities at that point. When I got into my next serious relationship, he casually mentioned us having slept together in front of my new BF, who already knew, just to stir crap up. I went full NC and haven't spoken to him for like 10 years. Story 25. Fireworks, man. It was amazing. Her and I always had some sexual tension between us. It started out slow, cuddling here and there, feeling each other up. You know how it is. One night we went all the way and we both admitted it was awesome. We've never felt that kind of connection. We literally lost ourselves when we had sex. The world stopped. We talked about it regularly. We even said we loved each other. Then one day out of the blue, she brings some dude over and keeps telling him, I'm just her best friend, blah, 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 blah. It was about a year later, still having sex, mind you, she came home from work and evicted me out of the house. Her and the dude she brought over are now married. No idea what changed. Super weird. Story 26. We were sitting on my front porch steps, tipsy. He decided to grab me, do a romantic dip, swoop, and kiss me. He swooped my head into the bushes on the side of the porch steps a little bit, and a big fat slug landed on my forehead. He stared at my face in horror while I stared back in complete confusion. There was no kiss. He lifted me back up and helped me clean the slug slime off my face. 20 years later, we're still BFFs. Story 27. My best friend for several years was a lesbian. We hooked up pretty frequently and had a bit on a joke between the two of us that I was her dildo with a pulse. I didn't mind it. I was young. We would hang all the time, concerts, gaming, etc. We never took things seriously, and it was a friendship I cherished a lot over the year. Post-college, she met a girl she liked. They started dating. Her and I slowly started hanging out less. We have zero contact now. Ran into her at an event a month ago, actually. She pretty much ghosted me. I took it as whatever we had, it's in the past. I don't dwell on it. Story 28. He wasn't necessarily my best friend, but he was a super close friend of mine in high school. Used to go over to his house and hang out with him all the time, but we never did anything sexual together. I moved away. Our lives went on. I saw him pretty much every time I would go back to that town, but it was always with groups of people and as friends. Went back a few months ago and saw him. We are 38 years old now. Timing aligned, and we slept together. We are now engaged, and I am happier than I ever could have imagined. I guess 24 years of loving and respecting someone, even from a distance, has finally worked itself out. Story 29. I slept with my best friend on and off for about a year when we were both in our single escort phases. It was great. He got a girlfriend and ended the sexual aspect. I was super upset and cried about it, not because the sex was so good I would miss it, but because I feared I would lose our friendship in the process. Thankfully, I didn't. We're still very close. I'm happy for him. And his girlfriend seems great. I have a serious boyfriend now as well, and they're becoming fast friends. They have a shocking amount of stuff in common, and we have a double date planned soon. Story 30. We became friends with benefits. A couple of months later, we were constantly bickering and decided to go back to being friends. In time, I realized he was still trying to get into my pants constantly, and so the friendship ended. Story 31. 3 years of high school being best friends and spending way too much time together while not being together. Spent 4 years in the USMC thinking about her. Came back, hooked up. She wanted nothing to do with me in relationship aspects after. Left and sailed around the world for 8 years. Got the phone call. She wanted to see me. She had a kid and was in the process of divorce. Stopped my entire life. Plus career, got a new job, moved into apartment with her and kid. COVID happened. Plus one baby and my beautiful stepdaughter bought a house in 2021, married in 2023, living life and happy. Story 32. Not a best friend per se, but one of my oldest friends. I'd gone through a tough divorce, and then a year or two later, so did she. We had always been flirty, but never single at the same time. Started messaging, and it turned into a pretty intense friends with benefits situation for a couple of months. We both needed the intimacy and knew it wasn't going to turn into anything. Honestly, it went well. We're both in relationships again and are still friends. Story 33. I broke up with my boyfriend the next day and promised my best friend I'd never do anything like that to him because he's my friend and I respect him. Our first date was easy because we already knew each other so well. We moved in together after about 4 months and got engaged a year after that. Now we're about to celebrate our 4th wedding anniversary on Tuesday, and I'm nursing our 6-week-old baby while writing this. Story 34. We dated a little while. It didn't work out. We took about a year apart from each other and then picked up our friendship again like nothing ever happened. We're as close as we've ever been. Story 35. Do it. Do it now. Do not wait until you are both second-guessing and convincing yourselves of what you may lose. Love honestly with the someone that already knows you better than anyone. She is still my best friend, and the love that fills a lifetime. Do not let doubt help you miss out on happiness. Remember, hearing no from 1,000 women hurts far less than hearing asterisk. I wish I would have at least told her how I feel asterisk echoing in your mind for the rest of your life. Story 36. Ended up in a poly relationship with her and her husband for a few years. Eventually she broke it off with me as we worked better as friends, but I stayed with her husband. They got divorced a few years ago. She's still with her other partners about to remarry, and I'm still with her ex. We all still hang out together frequently and play D&D twice a month. Story 37. It was the end of our friendship. She was trying to prove to herself that she could have me if she wanted me, that I couldn't resist her. I resisted for a while, and then I just decided I didn't care what it did to our relationship. From my perspective, I took advantage of her, although I'm pretty confident she sees it the other way around. I caught feelings, and she moved away. In retrospect, our friendship was just one long romantic tease anyway, so it is probably for the best. Story 38. It had been building up for a while. We both knew we had feelings for each other but circled around with other partners because the timing was slightly off. We always thought the other person had moved on until we confronted each other and realized we still had very much not moved on. As of now, we're together, and it's all I could have asked for. During all of it, we would joke that our lives were rom-coms, and now I can finally say I got my cheesy feel-good ending. Story 39. 3.5 years ago, we slept together because, well, crap happens. As I type this out, I'm cuddling our 11-month-old son. Everything changed for the better. Story 40. I'm gay. We did that a bunch when we were younger, but it's been so long that nobody thinks about it. We both have families of our own now, and get the kids together. Honestly, I'm glad we did this. Fulfilled the need at the time, but was safer than hookup culture. Story 41. Me and my best friend were both drunk and both recently single. We hooked up one night and became a situationship. Fast forward a few agonizing months. I caught feelings early on and she took a while. We became official. Then we broke up a 1.5 years later and we don't even text anymore. I miss her as a friend. She was the only one who truly understood me and always made me laugh. I hope she's doing okay. Story 42. Slept with my best friend, got together and dated for a year, then moved in together. Gonna get a civil partnership soon. Thing is, if you are attracted to your best friend and the feeling's mutual, you would be mad not to go for it because frankly, if you are that compatible, you are gonna fall in love. Honestly, the best decision we ever made, and we keep wondering how it didn't happen sooner. Story 43. Wasn't exactly my best friend, but good friend. I'd say I kinda took it for granted and she hasn't spoken to me in 8 years and it's rough. I miss being her friend. Story 44. It ruined our friendship. We became friends again a few years later and fell in love again. But I ran the other direction. Almost a decade ago, we stumbled across each other completely at random, no social media involved. After more than 20 years apart, we married 3 months later and have been together ever since. Story 45. Both spent years with the wrong people. We were right under each other's nose. We were very careful as we had over a decade of friendship to protect. Very different personalities, but the perfect match. I finally understand what they mean by opposites attract, aka don't find someone too different but compliments you. Best sex of my life. It's always the shy and quiet ones. Story 46. We started dating. Fell crazy in love, like all-encompassing. I ache for you. You're my whole world. I can't get enough of you. Type love. Then he died. 32 years old. Random middle of the night heart event. It's 3 years on. I want to die every day. Story 47. drunkenly slept with a female friend and me like an idiot tried to explain my feelings about it over text. That turned into an essay. And I regret everything about that night. Haven't spoken to her in probably a year or so. I still cringe at how ducking stupid I was. Story 48. Got married, had a couple kids, moved around the country and back. Then after 12 years she decided there wasn't a spark anymore and we are separated currently. Story 49. We dated for a little while before noticing that we weren't compatible as partners, just as friends. She's now happily engaged to another woman, and we're still good friends. Sometimes we talk and laugh about the time we thought we would work as a couple. Story 50. It was weird. We've always been into each other, but always enjoyed each other's friendship more. I pulled a muscle and needed a massage, and one thing led to another, and I was clapping cheeks. It's sad because I lost a great friend and we stopped communicating. Story 51. We spent 2 glorious days going full 18+ movies, and she is still my best friend today. We are both since married to other people with our own kids, and it has never been awkward.